Hi guys, thank you for joining. This is Eric Diaz from Marketing 110. Today, I'm very happy to have James Gregson from Lego, who's going to be discussing many things that he's done along his career path. So currently, James is creative director with Lego, and he began his career in a non-traditional brand strategy. He worked at a series of marketing and communication agencies in and around New York City. Through his professional experience, he built a combination of technical understanding and conceptual creativity to craft effective, measurable programs for clients and brands such as New Balance, Atari, and Mercedes-Benz. Currently, James is a senior creative leader within the Lego Group's internal creative agency. He leads a team that is responsible for creating best-in-class digital content across the Lego Group's own digital ecosystem. A little bit more about James. James was born in London, England, and spent his childhood living between New Jersey and the UK before coming to college in the US. James holds a Bachelor in Fine Arts from Syracuse University. He's currently struggling with the reality of being a father to a spirited 4-year-old girl and two-year-old identical twin boys, as well as 2 dogs. He's a huge fan of all things Arsenal FC, movies, and food, most specifically pizza. James, thank you so much for being with us.
That's quite an intro.
James, I asked you about your background. Tell me what do you got going on back there?
Oh man, I am both a employee and consumer of the brand. So there's lots of stuff. I think like a lot of us did. Spent my childhood playing with Lego for sure, and stopped. I don't know, around 12. And never picked it back up again. And oddly enough, my mother-in-law bought me an architecture set. This was before I was even connected with Lego professionally in any way. And that got me hooked. It was like it was the Sears Tower, Chicago Sears Tower, like a tiny little set. And I was like, oh my God, I got the itch. I started buying a bunch of sets. I was like, this is a slippery slope. But yeah, big fan.
That's great. Very good. Tell us as your role as a creative director, how does the magic happen? What does it typically look like for you?
A day is different day to day, but generally speaking, I'll start off with what we have sort of a team huddle, where my team is responsible for identifying and sometimes creating trending social content, right? So we have sort of a more sort of traditional sort of newspaper setup, right, where people are responsible for platforms and various topics that we know are currently a big deal for Lego. That could be something like music, that could be fashion, that could be sports. It changes, right? So we may look at the news and see that something happened or something's trending within the world of social, and determine whether we want to create a piece of content for that. That could be anything from Prince William and Kate having a child, and us celebrating the birth of their child, to the unboxing of a brand new iPhone or something like that. And we sort of sit and have it's a 15-minute meeting where we talk about whether we should create an opportunity or create some content on behalf of that opportunity. And it is sort of data driven, right? Everything goes back to the strategy. Does it make sense for the brand? And the data is the data there, to take that sort of subjectivity out of it. So that's what's sort of the morning meeting. Then I'm, probably hopping on to getting an update on where we are on a campaign that we're working on, right? So my major stakeholders, or my team's major stakeholders, are most typically in marketing. Those marketeers are responsible for supporting their retailers, Target, Walmart, whatever it may be, and making sure that we're selling the product that's on the shelf. And through a number of variables and methodologies, et cetera, they'll determine that they want a a campaign to market this product because it's a new product and we need to communicate the play proposition. So we get a creative brief, and then my team works on answering that creative brief. So let's assume that project is underway. I could be sitting down with my team and an external production company about what storyboards look like for a TV commercial, or I could be sitting down with our copywriters, listening to the scripts for radio ads, right? And it's everything from just giving input to making sure we're, on brief and everything makes sense, and making sure that the project's running fine. Unfortunately, in some cases, I get looped in when the project isn't going right or when there is a problem, right? So, inevitably, I'm putting out a fire. Hopefully, there aren't too many of them. Then, on a weekly basis, I have a leadership team meeting. So that consists of just sort of longer term initiatives, right? So if you think about it, my day started with in-day opportunities, right? Those trends, to then sort of in-week or in-month opportunities in the form of a campaign, to then, in month or even more so in year, sort of figuring out, making sure that our org structure is set up correctly and understanding what projects we have coming in the pipeline for next year and all those sort of variables. And then answering some emails, good old emails. We got to do some emails. Probably consuming some sort of media on my own time. So whether that's some stuff on TikTok, not crap, some actual newsworthy stuff on TikTok. I think there's some great, short form information. A podcast, there's a 15-minute finance podcast that I try and listen to every day, just talking about the ups and downs and what companies are making moves, et cetera, just to keep me close to the ground. And that's probably a typical day.
Oh, that's great. That's a great insight into what it's like, I guess, in your world these days. Mm-hmm. Where do you sit? Where is your seat in the world? What city are you in?
Yes. So I am remote, like most of us are. So I'm reporting to you live from my home office. But we are based oddly in Enfield, Connecticut, which is basically about 2.5 hours north of New York and about 2 hours south of Boston. Lego is headquartered in a very quiet countryside town in Billund, Denmark, which is about 2.5 hours north of Copenhagen. And I think we get similar vibes. We neighbor a prison and a tobacco farm. So it's I never thought that that's where I'd be working, but at the same time, I never thought I'd be working at Lego either. So
yeah, no, fascinating. So let's dig into that a little bit more. So what did lead you to Lego? Like, if you don't mind, maybe sharing a bit more about what your career path has been like.
Yeah, non-traditional is the best way to put it. I started in advertising design. And when I say started, I think I lasted less than 3 months. I really wasn't into it. I liked ads as a thing, like looking through com arts and like understanding the history of advertising. I loved that. I loved the power of advertising. But the classes, even at a wonderful school like Syracuse, it just didn't inspire me. And so I pivoted. I pivoted to do something that I would not recommend that everyone does. It was different back then when I was in college. And I simply was like, I wanted to do something that I would enjoy. And if I enjoyed it, then I was going to at least get good grades. I was not a studious individual at all. College was a real struggle for me, where academics were a real struggle for me. I didn't enjoy reading, all these sort of things that make, I was terrible at test taking, a lot of things that made academics really tough for me. So unsurprisingly, I majored in fine arts, a minor in painting, and a major in computer animation. And yeah, not because I wanted to work at Pixar, just because I was always artistic, and I knew I would enjoy it. And if I enjoyed it, I knew I would work hard and ideally would then get good grades. So my ultimate goal was like graduate with a reasonable GPA and then do something with it. So that was the goal. That's where I started. And listen, it's serendipitous. I grew up in college when Facebook was a thing in college. You had to have a .edu address, and everyone did. Everyone signed up to Facebook, and you know, Facebook's sort of a little bit of a myopic point of view on that. But you know, I was a digital native, right? I was burning CDs and downloading music, and I was on AOL Instant Messenger, and I was building websites with really bad code, and you know, I was just on the computer a lot. So when it came to time to find an internship, I struggled. I couldn't really find an internship. Through connections, got an internship at a public relations agency in New York City, which is what everyone does in Syracuse. You're the #1 communication school in the country, right? So PR was pretty prevalent, but I had no idea I literally had no idea what PR was. No clue. I sort of like celebrity publicist, which was not what this was going to be. And, you know, a month into the internship, an opportunity came up where I heard someone talking about a social network, and they were a very senior person. I didn't know who they were, but I thought they were fairly senior. And they were talking about, you know, this European social network, and what is a social network anyway? And so I did, I think probably the wild ballsy thing, but I probably still would have done it to this day. I picked my head out of the cubicle farm, as it was back then. And I was like, yeah, I know what that is. And they're like, who are you? And I was like, the intern. And long story short, it was a European-based social network that was wanting to launch in the US. And I lied. I was like, oh yeah, I know. I know that. I'm on it. Emailed everyone all my friends in England. I was like, what is this? Tell me something about it. Googled it. And long story short, got invited to a new business pitch as an intern, got a fake bio, the whole thing. Super exciting. It's like that was like the dream at that point. But most importantly is I sat in that meeting and I was like, okay, I can speak to these fairly high-powered, important executives in what felt like knowledgeable way about something that was inherently natural to me and not natural to them, which was communicating through the internet, right? Whether it was email, whether it was Facebook, whether it was instant messenger, newsletters, whatever it is, chat rooms. It was inherent to me and not inherent to anybody, these other decision makers. So that really kicked it off. I graduated, got another job in a public relations agency, worked in the agency space, never writing a press release, never doing anything to do with PR, but always doing something in this digital space, whether it was amplifying a physical event in a digital way, or creating crisis communications for corporations that needed a quick way to get messages out. Right, I'm really dating myself now because you would have done that on Facebook, but companies were on Facebook at that time, just college kids. And yeah, so spent about 10 years in the agency space, and then started off on my own thing. Got really tired of the grind and really tired of making rich people richer. And yeah, so I started up my own thing, basically doing everything and anything that I could get someone to pay me to do. And that sounds a little crass, but it was a marketing, a digital agency is what I called myself. So I was doing everything from logo design, which I would do myself, to website development and design, which sometimes I would do myself, to mobile app design and development, which I did not do myself, to social media community management, advertising, SEO, SEM, yeah, all sorts of stuff. And listen, the premise was that I used to sit in these agency new business pitches, and they'd say, "Oh, we've got the best team, custom team dedicated to your to your brand. We'll crush it." And that wasn't true. We just scrounged together whoever had capacity to take on the project. So for 5 years, I never had an employee, but I brought in what I believed were the best people that I could find at that time for the project. Right. So I developed a lot of book publishers and book websites. And I got my first opportunity to pitch a piece of business for that. Went to probably about 100 book websites in one day, and found a few website developers that created the websites that I thought were best, and then partnered with them to bring that work to life. Very long story short, I started consulting with Lego's PR agency unknowingly. They were based in San Francisco, worked with them on a handful of projects. They brought me onto a handful of Lego projects. And then an opportunity opened up to join Lego on their digital channel engagement team. So 6 years ago in January, I joined that team. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
That's great. No, that's great.
Yeah.
I see a lot of pivots along the way. So yeah, definitely.
Anything but linear. Anything but linear.
Definitely. Question for you. Just curious, really, on the what was that social network?
Yes, it was called Habbo Hotel. It was like a very weird, let's call it metaverse. It is kind of metaversy. It was like a physical 2-bit or like 2D, but it wasn't 2D. It was like just 3D, but like 16-bit graphics. Social network, and you could literally do what you can do in the metaverse now, which was decorate your own hotel room. People, you could hang out in the lobby, go to the bar. There was it was pretty funny. It was basically Sims.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right, and then I want to go to my first student question I have here, and then I'm gonna ask this question from Diana first, and then D, I'm gonna have you ask yours in just a moment because that'll be a nice segue to our next section. So, all right, so Diana from the class, she asked, what does it take to become a creative director for such a big company such as Lego?
Yeah, good question. If I knew, I could probably be a fairly wealthy man, because I could just create a formula and you guys can all follow it if that's what you want to do. Listen, I say it to this day. I don't see myself as a creative director. I see myself as a problem solver. I see myself as someone that understands the 30,000 foot view and what the right thing to do is, while also understanding what it actually takes to make that 30,000 foot view happen within the context of the project, right? Whether that be budget, whether that be timeline, whether that be skills internally, whatever it may be. So I see that's my skill set. Now, I've always been creative. I've a fine arts degree, right? There's no way I would have had a minor in painting if I wasn't naturally creative, but I've never had the word creative in my title. And frankly, I do feel like I'm living in a little bit of an imposter syndrome as a creative director. At the same time, right? Anyone who works for me, I think, feels very supported and believes that I'm doing my job, in the sense of I'm trying to push the best possible creative idea out of the team within the context that we're up against, and then fighting to the death for that idea. So to answer the question, though, I think one of the most important characteristics that I certainly look for in new employees in the creative field, but also sort of just generally, is this idea of curiosity, right? Focused curiosity, but a curiosity that wants to take things to another level, right? And not just deliver what was asked of, but sure, deliver what is asked of, but also then think about, like, but as an alternative, what if we could take it even further? This is what I would think we would do, right? I always talk about that. I always talk about my sort of personal user experience on YouTube. I talk about this often, right? Is that, I consume a lot of content myself on a personal basis on YouTube, and every step of that process, from the very first thing, from opening the app and seeing what's on my homepage, to clicking on a thumbnail, to the pre-roll that I'm served, to do I skip that pre-roll or do I not skip that pre-roll? All those sorts of things are triggering thoughts in my mind in the back, maybe unhealthily so, of why did I click that video? Or why are these videos showing up on my homepage? Or why is that new video from a completely different category I've never consumed before showing up on my homepage? Or why do I think I'm getting served that pre-roll? What targeting ensure that? All these sort of background things that help sort of keep that curiosity and keep me thinking about why I'm doing something rather than just passively consuming content. It sounds exhausting when I spit it back out, but I assure you it's that nature of asking yourself the questions, not being a pain in the ass, and asking people the questions in that curious sense, but just asking the questions and having that natural curiosity to try and figure out why.
That's great. And there was two things you mentioned. I just wanted to just touch very briefly on,
Yeah.
if you can expand a little bit. See, one of them was you mentioned imposter syndrome and feeling syndrome. And that's something I'd love for the students to kind of understand a little bit more.
Yeah.
And the second one is, if you don't mind, just touching on, like, what is a creative brief?
Yes, sure. All right. So listen, imposter syndrome, where do I start with that? Listen, I think society's changing, right? And we can talk about all sorts of levels of that. But by what I say about that is that, listen, I've done a lot of self-work over the last 18 months, as we're all sort of sitting in our little, or me sitting in my office here, not seeing people that I work with on a day-to-day basis, and doing a lot of self-evaluating, right? And trying to figure out what it is that makes me tick, what it is that not makes me tick. And for me, authenticity, right? I'm extremely direct. I'm extremely honest. And I use that word authenticity because I like to be extremely transparent, right? So I say things like imposter syndrome because I think I'd argue 80% of us probably feel an element of imposter syndrome. It's just not many people talk about it. And imposter syndrome is this whole idea of like, do I deserve to be a creative director? I never went to ad school, right? And millions of people have been to ad school, and there's creative directors that are way older than me that are, far more skilled than I am. But you could turn yourself inside out thinking about those sort of things. Don't get me wrong, I do. But at the same time, you've got to focus on the fact that I've got the job. My boss has empowered me and supported me and given me this opportunity. And I will work as hard as I can to pay that back and prove that I deserve to have this job, right? But at the same time, imposter syndrome is real. It's that concept behind a lot of people, I think, that sometimes don't believe they deserve to be there. That's just my authentic way of being very honest and open about who I am as a person. And that doesn't mean that I come across as not confident in meetings and don't deliver my best ideas. That's just me being transparent about how I show up, how I don't show up, but how I feel. So that's imposter syndrome. And then a creative brief, right? So the best way of describing a creative brief is a non-legally binding contract. And I say that by, it is the agreement between the creative department, those that are making the campaign, and your marketeers who have briefed something in. So typically marketing is creating a brief that identifies the need for a campaign. So it could be everything from what is the audience, to what the budget is, to what products do we need to promote, to what are the key messages that we need to hit, right? And there's a lot of negotiations. Negotiation sounds wrong, but there's a lot of discussions about crafting the perfect brief, because as I said, it is the non-legally binding contract between marketing and creative, so that we have a very clear direction of what we're trying to create and what we're trying to do, and what message we're trying to deliver. So that is a creative brief, and that everything starts with a creative brief.
Perfect.
For us.
And Dee, if you would, I'd like you to ask the questions that you submitted for James as well.
Hi, so my question is, what's been your biggest challenge in brand development?
Okay, so lots of challenges. Lego's an interesting brand in the sense that there's no shortage of opportunities, right? So the biggest challenge for us is prioritizing those opportunities, right? So, and in a large organization like ours, everyone wants their piece of the pie, right? And their opportunity to get their voice heard. But at the same time, as I said, you've got to prioritize these opportunities. You've got to make sure that these opportunities hit on the biggest audiences, because for a brand like ours, right, we could chase after 80,000 different opportunities on a given week. But we really try and focus on the biggest, most globally relevant, largest potential opportunities, rather than those opportunities that are briefed in or identified by the loudest person in the room. So that's probably the biggest challenge. It's a little bit of a unique challenge for a big brand like ours, but it is a very real challenge.
Okay, for my next question, what helped you to develop the skills that you have today?
Man, so I haven't, I'm going to say this out loud. Sorry, professors who are listening. I haven't read a book in probably 10 years. But my goodness, do I consume a lot of information, right? And that's not scrolling through TikTok. I do that, but that is consuming a huge amount of articles, news, industry articles, research, podcasts. I consume a lot of information. So to me, that's what I feel like makes me stand out, is because I have a lot of opinions and a lot of, I like to say, educated opinions on a wide variety of topics and a wide variety of how people consume information, and what resonates and why, right? And I speak about YouTube often because I really look at YouTube from a creator standpoint, right? So I like kayak camping. I don't do it that often. I've done it like 3 times in my life, but I could watch kayak camping videos or camping videos on YouTube all day long. There is someone that I came across on my homepage, as we tend to do, that I followed, and he was about 20,000 followers when I followed him. And I watch every one of his videos, the camping videos. So like he maybe does one every 3 weeks, because it takes time to do that sort of stuff. But I really dig deep. Like I looked through all of his videos and saw which videos got a higher watch time, or the higher number of views, right? And one of his videos has 15 million views for a subscriber base of, now he's got like 200,000 subscribers. And other videos have 30,000 views. And I literally sit there and think while I'm watching his content, why is that? Is it the thumbnail? Is it the length of the video? Was it timing? All these sort of things. Now, I don't know these answers, but to me, it's having that curiosity and having that underlying sort of problem-solving nature is what's got me to this point, as well as networking. serial networking, right? Like Eric reached out to me on LinkedIn. I could have very easily said I'm too busy, right? I could have very easily, I'm on vacation this week. I could very easily not do this, but I enjoy this. I enjoy sharing my opinions and talking to folks like you. And creating that network really helps build relationships, and sort of create connections with people, and hopefully those connections can be profitable.
And James, I will.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
You mentioned podcast. So if you don't
Yes.
mind me asking, what was the name of the podcast that's like impact you like in marketing?
Okay, so there's a number of podcasts. Snacks Daily is one. So Robinhood owns them or just bought them. They are a 15-minute, i.e. daily, very easily consumable podcast. And it's financial, daily financial information, right? So talks about stocks, talks about mergers and acquisitions and things like that in a very consumable, quick way. I listen to it every day while I have lunch. And I mean, it's kind of cheesy. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of cheesily done and cheesily produced, but the content is so useful. And I feel like I am in such the know of things that are outside of my traditional ecosystem, the toy category or, entertainment. So that's one. And then there's a handful of other ones. There's a very strange podcast called The Group Chat. I know nothing about these guys, not a clue. I found them across TikTok. But they talk about everything from supply chain issues to NFTs to the metaverse to all sorts of things. And they're just a perspective. I actually don't think they're overly educated and experts in a topic, in a category, but they, for instance, spoke at great length about the Travis Scott concert and the incident there in Houston, and gave a number of really interesting opinions that I don't think I would have come up myself without hearing other people share their opinions. So I'm all for people with alternative thoughts and opinions, and if I can get that. So I would highly recommend The Group Chat and Snacks Daily as a great one. I'm going to look because there's got to be more that I listen to.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Oh, Freakonomics. Freakonomics is a really good one. Talk about a weird, right? So it's based on the author, Stephen J. Dubner, who did a book called Freakonomics, and then he applies that same sort of strange economic theory behind most random things, like why is there a mattress store in every block, or why there are mattress stores next to other mattress stores, and again, it goes back to that. I've thought about that myself many times, and I would never, ever, intelligently know the answer to that question. So again, that sort of natural curiosity or wanting to understand things, I'm all for.
Thank you.
No worries.
And just recapping those, so that was the three ones that you mentioned podcasts were Snacks Daily, The Group Chat, and Freakonomics?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Very good. So transitioning to some of the, I guess what we're calling the front lines of marketing on a well-known brand, some of the questions that were submitted from our students. So one of them from Jordan, she asked, how would you describe the target audience of Lego? And if you've have found that your target audience is either expanded or shifting now from now that our world is changing?
Yes, definitely has shifted dramatically. Just look at the price point of our products, right? It's increased. That's not because we're getting greedy. It's because we're targeting adults, right? Lego is considered a toy company, right? That's what people synonymously associate Lego with. But we are deeming that toys do not need to be for kids, just for kids. They can also be for adults. I do have the Home Alone set sitting by the side of my desk right now that I will be building while I watch Home Alone at some time during the holiday season, right? I didn't quite splurge on the Titanic set, but yes, adults are a massive audience. They've always have been an audience for us. but they really spiked through COVID for all the obvious reasons, right? Adults, we deem adults those without kids that are over 21, right? So for those of you that were stuck at home and couldn't play any more video games or couldn't binge on Netflix anymore, Lego was probably the next best thing as a outlet, and it's a pretty calming, relaxing outlet too. So yes, adults is a huge new audience segment, but as we like to say, it's anyone who wants to build, anyone who wants to creative problem solve and build their imagination.
Another question from Jordan. She asked about, how does obviously Lego has such a as iconic background and history, but how does the company continue to stand out amongst a sea of competitors and also big other well-known toy companies?
Yeah, listen, heritage is big, right? There's a lot of people who worked really hard way before I showed up to establish the brand to where it was, or where it is today, and that can't be underlooked. At the same time, product innovation, right? And it's not just from a building standpoint. It's from, or brand innovation probably is the best way. It's everything from the movies, right, to the Legoland parks, to our YouTube presence. It's getting the brand in not only building experiences, but in other ways in front of people, right? And I think the movies were a great proof of that. And as well as continuing to evolve these sort of partnerships, right? So we have the Adidas Superstar shoe set, to the Home Alone set, to the Nintendo partnership. We're really honing in on those audiences and what resonates with those audiences. And when you tie something like Home Alone with Lego, it becomes a really sellable opportunity for consumers, or at least we hope.
Very good. Hillary from the class, she asked for she says, can you provide any quick tips on how to create an organic but hyper-relevant content strategy?
Ooh, no such thing as quick tips. Trick question. But listen, I think the best way to look at it is be very focused, right? Not everyone's Lego, right? And so there's a number of variables. One, don't spread yourself too thin, right? I'm a big advocate of content fit for purpose, right? So, or channel agnostic content, some of the terms, but basically not creating one piece of content that is published across all social channels. That's not how it works. Don't do that, unless of course you've invested a great deal of money in that piece of content. And then even then, I would say, if you're investing a great piece of money on a piece of content, then you should have had the foresight to create versions and edits across different channels. So be focused. You don't have to win on every single channel. Winning on one channel where your audience is most prevalent is probably the best way to go. And frankly, right now, that's TikTok. The organic value on the other channels is in significant decline, and it is not going to get any better. And we are probably got 18 more months of TikTok delivering absurd, like life-changing, business-making growth. So to that point, invest heavily in TikTok. But let's say you can't invest heavily on TikTok. I would just be very focused on trying to win on one channel rather than all channels.
Where does Lego as a brand, I guess, in the United States, where do they put the majority of their effort in social media?
Yeah, so it's spread quite evenly right now because we're all coming to terms with the likes of Instagram and Facebook being a pretty challenged company at a number of levels, both philosophically and from a performance and advertising standpoint. They're just not performing, and that's for everything from IDFA, which is the latest iOS update, which disables tracking. So the targeting opportunities on Facebook are not nearly as effective as they used to be. So the cost of advertising on Facebook is going up. Therefore, the ROI of advertising on Facebook is going down. So it's spread pretty evenly across Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
TikTok or no?
No TikTok yet. We're a little nervous about TikTok at the moment. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see what else from the class. Hillary also asked, is there a formula to the type of content you put out?
There isn't a formula, but I would go back to Hillary's last question, actually, just talking about the content strategy. A content strategy should never be set in stone, right? The beauty of social media is that everything can be optimized based on performance, but not over-optimized or over-engineered, right? So on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, I would always look back at your content and identify what worked and what didn't. In some cases, you won't be able to have any massive learnings outside of, we'll post more content like this. But sometimes that, if you continue to post that content won't always perform. So it's a little bit of a hit or miss, but the data is all you need, right? Data proves everything. We can sit there and look at a photo and say, this is a terrible photo, and this is a question how it got published. But at the same time, that photo has gotten the best reach out of any content that week, right? So you kind of throw your hands up in the air and go, I don't know what this tells us. We'll continue moving on. So I would also be very sure from a strategic standpoint that every single time you create a piece of content, does it ladder up to that strategy, right? Does it serve that audience? Does it serve a purpose? And if you don't have one, a fun little exercise I would always say is, would I expect my audience to share this content themselves, right? That is the gold standard. You want someone to retweet, to share your post, whatever it is. That's always a fun threshold to have that question, because if not, and typically if you're working on behalf of a brand and a brand is overly trying to sell a product, you are not going to want to share that content. Now, if it's an opportunity to win a free product, then maybe, but you get my gist. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Now, finally, I just want to, for the last few questions, I just want to
sure.
Summarize. So what are some of the things that these students who are all thinking about getting their first jobs in the marketplace over the next few years, what are some of the things that they can do to set themselves apart? So
yes, great
Havana
question.
from the class, she asked, what steps or networking tools did you follow to help yourself stand out to, she says large brands, but I guess it could be in any company.
Anybody. LinkedIn is a great tool, right? Even as a student with no, employment history, reach out to people, ask for 5 minutes, ask for 10 minutes, and frankly, those first 5 or 10 of those 5-minute conversations or 10-minute conversations may suck. You may be terrible at them, right? But you'll get better at them and you'll get an understanding of how these conversations could go and what you want to get out of those conversations. Obviously, you want to try and do that before you have them, but I'm just being realistic. So don't be scared to reach out to people randomly. I've had a handful of people, certainly in the last 2 years with COVID, just reach out and yeah, sure, I'll take that conversation. I'm not going to give you 30 minutes or an hour, or I'll give you 15 minutes. Anyone can offer up 15 minutes. So don't be scared to reach out to anybody. And don't just go at big brands, right? Try smaller brands. Smaller brands are sometimes more open for help. That would be one angle. I'll let you answer the rest of the questions, but I'll get to a point. Are we going to pivot off of the how to set yourself apart from others? Because I can keep on going on that topic.
Yeah. No, I think we've got more that'll get you to that answer. So
okay. Cool.
So the next question was, with the knowledge you have now, would you have taken the same steps to land your position with Lego?
No way. No. Would I do it differently? No, I probably wouldn't do it differently because I'm proud of how I got to where I would. But I probably would have tried some different things. You know, I don't necessarily believe that my experience in the PR agency space elevated to me to where I am now, but maybe I'm wrong because it built my network and it got me in front of a lot of different brands and a lot of crazy cool and some crazy terrible experiences. For that, I'm very thankful. I do think that would have been in any industry on the agency side, whether it's advertising, whether that's marketing, whether that's events. You know, starting off in an agency gives you a lot of different opportunities that you wouldn't have necessarily.
How has working at a well-known company affected your career?
How was that affecting my career? I mean, listen, first off, I'm proud, right? I'm proud, I'm humbled, I'm honored. There are 8-year-old versions of myself that would probably kill me to have my job. And I try not to forget that, but sometimes I do, because it is still work. It is still a job. So that's probably the first thing. Otherwise, it gives me opportunities like this, right? Like, you know, you reached out to me because I work at Lego, not because I'm me. You'll tell me otherwise, I think. But you know, but that's a point here, is right. Like it should hypothetically open doors to opportunities that you can or cannot take. You know, it's up to you. So it opens opportunities, and that is a wonderful thing.
Excellent. All right, final 2 questions. Question from Diana. She asks, can you provide any tips for someone who is making their first steps into the marketing field?
Yes, do. And by that, I mean, right, I certainly in the space of social media, right? Create a fake social media brand and post some content, right? Like try and build a community around something made up, something real, whatever it is. You know, take $100, $10, $20, and you know, boost some content and target some people. Try it out just to see how it works. You know, and you'll be amazed how much knowledge you gain. Right. So it's no point sitting there on the sidelines being like, oh, but you know, if I got the field, then I'd get better. You know, that's not how it works. Well, it does work like that, but you have to practice. You have to practice what you want to do on the field before you get on the field. To use a sports analogy, but that's what I would say is just try and do, get your hands dirty as much as you can, and by that I mean, right, you know, find someone who needs marketing help for something. Find someone who wants to put on an event and ask how you can help. You know, the event space is you know, traditionally light on support. You know, so yeah, I would just try that. Read lots, try and speak with people, connect with people, look at marketing Twitter hashtag. Marketing Twitter hashtag on Twitter. You know, that's a great community, a great network for the most part. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
Good. And I think you covered my last question as well. So I think that wraps it. James, I really
awesome.
I really wanted to thank you for your time. This has been great. I love giving the students perspectives of where you came from and how you got there, especially in your role. And you know, it's not always linear, like you said.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and so I do appreciate it. Thank you for having an authentic conversation with us.
No worries, no worries. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Everyone feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, at JLW Greg.
Very good. I will share definitely at least your LinkedIn with them. And wait,
Wonderful.
James, have a great Thanksgiving week. Everyone,
Yes. Yes, you too. Take care.
bye, guys.